Welcome to British BioMedicine Institute. Today I, Dr. Pramod Khatri, is going to represent a simple topic named as adverse event, unanticipated problems and protocol deviation. So the learning objectives of the topic are: you will be able to understand the importance of adverse event reporting to clinical investigations and patient safety. You will be able to identify and define adverse event AE. You will be able to define or identify SAE, serious adverse events, or you will be able to define UAP, unanticipated problems, and you will be able to understand the investigator, CRC, and sponsor responsibility with regard to identifying, documenting, and reporting adverse events. So why do we collect adverse event data? Basically, we use it to determine the safety profile of a drug or a medical device. We also use to evaluate the risk and the benefit of the product. And it also provides the information for the packaging insert if it is approved for the marketing. And determination of the safety is often one of the primary protocol objective when evaluating new therapies. So, protecting patient subject safety is one of the most important responsibility of an investigator. This is in accordance with the 21 CFR 312.64. Basically, it is a law. So, in accordance with 45 CFR 46.103B section and 21 CFR 56.108 law or CFR, the roles and the responsibility of IRB, Institutional Ethics Committee, is to ensure the study do not expose subjects to undue harm, and they ensure that the risk-benefit ratio fall within the acceptable range. And in accordance with 21 CFR 312.32A section, the adverse event can be defined as any untoward medical occurrence which has been associated with the use of a drug in a human being, whether or not considered as drug-related. And whereas in accordance with 21 CFR 812.3 section, unanticipated adverse drug effect can be defined as any serious adverse effect on a health or a safety or any life-threatening problem or a death caused by or association with the device if not identified in the device brochure, protocol, or in the consent form. So the synonyms of the adverse event, they include effect, experience, health consequences, occurrence, outcome, and reaction to a drug. The example of adverse events are: if there is a abnormal lab value, worsening of pre-existing conditions, physical sign and symptoms, abnormal exam, test, or procedure results, concurrent illness, subjective reports, or change in the vital sign or physical exam. If there is a complication from surgery or a procedure, psychological symptoms or harm, device malfunction or failure, device user error, incorrect dose or overdose, and drug dependence. These are the example of adverse events. And it is important to know that the subject baseline conditions and the concomitant medications or at the time of enrollment must be taken care of. Example of what AE are not: if it is a surgery or is a procedure, or the medical condition which cause the need for a procedure or a surgery is a adverse event, and if there is a pre-existing conditions which remain unchanged throughout the clinical study, a thorough history and physical at baseline is a must in order to disconcern what is and what is not an as a AE, adverse event. So SAE, serious adverse event, the basic definition is in accordance with 21 CFR 312.32, an adverse event or a suspected adverse reaction is considered serious if, in view of either the investigator or the sponsor, it result in any of the following outcome: A point, death; B point, life-threatening adverse events; C point, inpatient hospitalization or prolongation of existing hospitalization; fourth point, persistent or significant incapacity or substantial disruption of the ability to conduct normal life functions; E point, congenital anomaly or birth defect; F point, important medical event that may not result in the death; B, life-threatening or require hospitalization may be considered serious only when it is based upon the appropriate medical judgment. They may jeopardize the patient or a subject and may require medical or surgical intervention to prevent one of the outcome which is listed in this definition. So, where are you going to identify adverse event? Basically, we can get information from medical records like your lab report, radiological report, progress report, or surgical reports. We can also get information from subject questionnaires, subject diaries, and medical reconciliation. Through observations or through CRF, case report form, or there can be an open-ended questions to subjects and family like, how have you been feeling since I saw you last? Or you can ask a question like, can you describe any changes since you started the study medication? How you are going to identify a SAE? Basically, you can ask or you can develop a systemic method for collecting the informations, or you can use a tool to ensure thoroughness. Practice open-ended questions. You can avoid misleading questions like, are you experiencing nausea? Always remain objective. Always ask direct questions. Take time to reassure the patient and listen to them carefully. So that while documenting the adverse event, we have to make sure that these following points are met. Event, their nomenclature and description; grading in the form of severity or intensity; relationship like causality; expected, seriousness, action taken or whether the treatment has been started or not; duration and the outcome. So, event basically is used to describe. Event is a very important, or we can say it is basically a preferred term often defined in the protocol or by the sponsor. Basically, it is an inaccurate or inconsistent coding of event which can lead to missed safety signals. For example, wheezing versus bronchospasm versus asthma, or another example here it is asthma versus high blood pressure. So a coding dictionary is basically used like MEDRA, Medical Directory Dictionary for Regulatory Activities. So basically, if event is a understanding documentation requirement in advanced patient like queries, additional works, and possible erroneous data. So grading, or we can say severity, can be graded as mild, moderate, severe, life-threatening, or death. So grade 1, also known as mild, basically asymptomatic or mild symptoms will be coming and intervention is not indicated. Grade 2, moderate, basically here minimal intervention is indicated and it may limit ADL. Grade 3, we can say severe, medically significant but not immediately life-threatening. Hospitalization or prolongation of hospitalization is indicated and it is basically a disabling or a self-limiting care, or we can say ADL. And grade 4 is basically life-threatening the consequences, or there can be an urgent intervention indicated, and grade 5 is the death, which can be related to the adverse events. So now comes the severity. Severity is referred to as the intensity of a event, or seriousness is basically a guide for defining regulatory reporting obligations, and it is based upon patient or event outcome or action, usually associated with event which threatened a patient's life or functioning. The example here is new onset migraine, which lasted for 2 days, causing subject to stay in bed and miss work, and he was unable to care for his children. So basically it is not a life-threatening condition. There is no need for hospitalization and no persistent disability, hence it is not serious condition, but the intensity can be severe. Now comes relationship, or we can say causality. Is there a reasonable possibility that the event was related to or caused by the investigational intervention? The relationship term and descriptions are often defined by the protocol or by the sponsor. So the study intervention relationships are basically 0, not related, 1, unlikely related, 2, possibly related, 3, probably related, and 4, definitely related. So expected versus unexpected. So expected adverse events will be described in the following, like your investigator brochure IB. It contains information regarding all the SAE or SAE which are reported in all the trials of the test article till date. Package insert. Basically, the safety and dosing informations of all the approved drug is available in the packaging insert. Protocol and informed consent, and safety profile of other drugs in the same class can also be used to identify expected or unexpected conditions. So under unexpected adverse events which are not listed in the investigator brochure or are not listed at a specificity or severity then that has been observed, or if a investigator brochure has not required or is available, it is non-consistent with the risk information described in the general investigational plan. So in accordance with 21 CFR 312.32a section, there are often specific or unexpedited timelines or and reporting requirements of unexpected adverse events, and they are known by institutional and sponsor requirements. So the example are, if the investigator brochure referred only to elevated hepatic enzyme or hepatic necrosis would be unexpected by virtue of great severity. And if the investigator brochure is listed in the cerebral vascular accident, cerebral thromboembolism and cerebral vascularities will be unexpected, or we can say by virtue of greater specificity. Serious, it can be a death, a life-threatening adverse event, inpatient hospitalization or prolongation of existing hospitalization, a persistent or significant incapacity or substantial disruption of the ability to conduct normal life function. It can be a congenital anomaly or a birth defect, and important medical conditions can also be there. They are often specific and unexpedited timelines and reporting requirements for SAE. And you can get more information from your sponsor or from your institutional if you want more information related to the serious adverse events. So now comes the action taken or treatment plan. So action taken regarding study intervention will be, if it is 0, none. If it is 2, dose modification is needed. 2. Medical intervention is required. 3. Hospitalization can be there. 4. Intervention can be discontinued, and 5 others. So specific information will be collected and as defined by the protocol or by the sponsor. Often all treatment will need to be documented in the CRF or in the follow-up reports. So duration and the outcome. So basically duration is the start and the stop time, or sometime we can say it is the time at which the AE or SI has happened. This may be known or ongoing, whereas outcome can be resolved, ongoing, or resolved with sequelae. So now comes the reporting adverse events. It's all about the safety, and it is the responsibility of the principal investigator to get as much as information related to AE and let it be informed, let the PI or CRC, they inform the ethics committee and to the FDA with the help of sponsor as soon as possible. So under the reporting responsibilities, basically the investigator and the institutional ethics committee must promptly report information regarding adverse events or unanticipated problems which may involve risk to the subjects or to the others. This is in accordance with the 21 CFR 312.53. So all adverse events must be reviewed by and signed by the qualified clinician or the principal investigator. Know the reporting requirements and timelines for the institutions and for the clinical study. So under expected adverse events, which will be described in the following way: investigator brochure. It contains all the information related to the AESA, packaging insert, protocol, and informed consent can also help in getting the information, and safety profile of other product in the same class, they can also be helpful. So now comes the reporting guideline, or we can say quorum review by ethics committee. Must meet all the 3 criteria. First one, serious. Second, unanticipated. And third, related. Basically, related is a reasonable possibility that the adverse event may have been caused by the study product or by the study procedure, or we can say possibly, probably, or definitely related, and it must be reported to the ethics committee within 10 days. Internal versus external adverse events. So in the context of multi-center trials, internal adverse event is basically an event that is experienced by subject which are enrolled by a hospital, or we can say also known as on-site. External adverse events basically are the event which will be experienced by the subject which are enrolled at other institutes or hospitals that are participating in the same multi-center trial, or we can call them as offshore. So the related terms are IND safety reports, or we can say investigational new drug. A report issued by the sponsor of an investigation product when the safety issue arises, and it has to be submitted to the FDA, to the IRB, and if all the pertaining information can be collected from the regulation named as 21 CFR 312.32. PI and Institutional Ethics Committee must review these reports. DSMB, or we can say DSMC, they helps in getting the information which will be shared by the PI. So DSMB is basically Data Safety Monitoring Board, or DSMC, Data Safety Monitoring Committee. Basically these are an independent committee of clinicians, statisticians, ethicists, and other specialists who assess the progress of a clinical trial, its safety and its efficacy at a specific interval. The committee can make recommendations that a study will be continued, modified, stopped based upon the data being reviewed. So UAP, unanticipated problems, basically they involve risk to the subjects and others, like they must meet all the following criteria, like unexpected in terms of nature, severity and frequency given, like research procedure that are described in the protocol or in the informed consent document, or characteristics of a patient population being studied. Second point, related or a possibly related to participation in the research. And third, suggests that research places subject or other at the greater risk of harm, including physical, psychological, economic and social harm, which was previously known or recognized. So the example of UAP involving risk to the subject or others, or it include or but are not limited to: A point, DSMB, or we can say interim analysis suggesting additional risk. A report like journals, articles, abstract, etc. that reveal a change in risk-benefit ratio. A breach of confidentiality, or a change in FDA labeling or withdrawal from market of a drug, device, biological use in a research protocol. Incarceration of a subject in a protocol not approved by to enroll prisoners. Sponsor imposed suspension for risk. And protocol violation that may harm subjects or patients, or it can increase the risk of harm. So under unanticipated problems, basically AE that are serious and UAP, unanticipated, are considered the most important subset for adverse events. Basically, it suggests that the research plan place subject and other are at a great risk of harm. It can warrant consideration of substantive change in the research protocol and informed consent and other corrective actions in order to protect the safety, welfare and the right of the subject. So in accordance with 45 CFR 46.113, IRB has authority to suspend, terminate approval of the research that has been associated with unexpected serious harm to the subjects. So now comes the protocol deviation and violations. We must understand the current definition of protocol deviations versus protocol violation. So we can also describe documentation and reporting of the protocol deviation. So basically, the basic definition here for protocol violation or deviation is that it is basically an unplanned or unintentional departure from an IRB approved protocol without prior sponsor or IRB approval. There is currently no consensus or definition in CFR or ICH on how to differentiate between deviation versus violation. So protocol deviation is basically a deviation from the IRB approved protocol which may reduce the completeness, accuracy and reliability of clinical study. It can contraindicate and invalidate the informed consent, and it can impact the subject safety, right and well-being. So protocol definition basically has no significant consequences to the subject or protocol integrity and is considered as minor. A frequently accepted delineation is that a deviation does not expose the subjects to increased risk, whereas a violation does. Often, deviation and violations is considered a joint term, with the only difference being reporting guidelines after the event has been assessed. So, protocol violation and deviation can result from the action of subjects, investigator and study staff. It can be unavoidable or unintentional, or it may be purposeful If so, explore the possibility of a waiver in advance. So in accordance with Quorum review, or we can say IRB, prospective protocol waiver can only be possible if any prospective request for a unintentional deviation from the ethics committee approved protocol, except when necessary to eliminate an apparent immediate hazard to the participants. So the example of the protocol deviation are: subject follow-up visit occur out of the window, provided that this doesn't affect subject well-being or integrity of clinical data. Second point, schedule of event are not followed, or we can say questionnaire administered out of the order, or number of subjects enrolled exceed IRB approved number. The significant risk of harm to the research subjects are: subject receive wrong treatment or incorrect dose. Second point, subject meet withdrawal criteria during the study but was not withdrawn. Third point, subject received and excluded concomitant medications. So, compromise of the scientific integrity of the data collected, like the subject was enrolled but did not meet the protocol eligibility criteria. Number 2 point, changing the protocol without prior IRB approval. Number 3 point, inadvertent loss of sample or clinical data. So if there is a breach of human subject protection regulations, policies and procedures on the part of investigator, then there will be a failure to obtain informed consent prior to initiation of study related procedures. Inadequate or improper informed consent procedures were there, or falsifying research or medical records were given. So if there was a non-compliance to federal, state, local or institutional human subject protection guidelines, policies and procedures, then there will be a working under an expired, or if suppose someone is working under an expired professional license and certification. Second point, performing test or procedure beyond the individual professional scope and privilege status or credentiality. Repeated minor deviations, and there is a breach of confidentiality. So the investigator shall also assure that he or she will promptly report to ethics committee about all changes of research activity and all the unanticipated problem involving the risk to human subjects or others, and she will not make any change in the research without ethics committee approval, except when necessary to eliminate apparent immediate hazards to human subjects. So this has to be done in accordance with 21 CFR 312.66, and basically reporting requirements are defined by individual ethics committee and by the sponsors. So in general, for deviation we must keep a log. The investigator should review and sign in real time. Second point, submit to ethics committee with annual review. And third point, sponsor will review during routine monitoring visit. And if there is a violation, need to be reported to the ethics committee and sponsor as they occur. And unanticipated problems posing risk to subject and others like UAP must be reported to the ethics committee and to the sponsor as soon as possible. So this is all about the presentation. I hope you have gained a lot of clinical information through this presentation. Please like, share, subscribe our YouTube channel named as British Biomedicine Institute. Good luck. Goodbye.